you can hear the reaction in the movie theater as people were like, "What the f did I just watch?" Right? Hey guys, Nathan here. Welcome to 24 Chambers of Film, and today I want to talk about the most disturbing movie I've seen in a movie theater. Now, I want to start this by saying when I say most disturbing movie, I don't mean that the movie is something on the level of Martyrs, a Serbian film, the Guinea Pig films, anything like that. I'm talking about a movie that just when you went in, the audience was not ready for what they were about to see, and it kind of shifted the dynamic in the movie theater. I also want to hear what movies you guys have seen in the movie theater that people were just not ready for, that prompted them to kind of react and because they weren't expecting what they saw. Now, obviously, if you go see a movie that is expected to be very violent, very gory, or just the director's known for, you know, pushing the envelope on stuff, you can't really be too surprised, right? A lot of times those movies aren't mainstream releases, things like that. So what I'm talking about, what I'm really referring to is like you went to the movie theater, see a mainstream release, and then you were just completely caught off guard by what you saw. So for me, that movie was the 2006 remake of The Hills Have Eyes. I had not seen the original Hills Have Eyes when I saw the remake. I saw the original later. And I think a lot of people were just expecting like a good old scary movie. You know, I think the trailer kind of let you know what was kind of going on in the movie. And I think people were just there to have a good old scary time. And they got more than what they bargained for. So, for those not familiar with this movie, the premise is there's a guy named Big Bob, and he is on a trip with his family, a road trip with his family. His teenage son, his teenage daughter, his oldest daughter, who's already married and has a baby, and his wife. They run over some spikes. They're stranded in the middle of the New Mexico desert, and they are being watched by people in the hills who are deformed because they were subject to radiation testing. And essentially, they capture unexpecting drivers and kill them and basically live off of these people. So all that is just, normal run of the mill scary movie stuff. Starts off normal enough. People are, little jump scares here and there, nothing crazy, but people are into it. And then what happens is Big Bob decides to head for the road to try to find some help, try to go back to this gas station that they have stopped at to try to get some more assistance. And then he is captured, and at one point he is lit on fire, and everyone sees this happening from the camp or from the RV or the trailer, whatever you want to call it, and everyone runs to go help him except his teenage daughter, who stays back in the trailer with the baby. So up until this point, normal freaking movie. Hell, even Big Bob getting burned alive to cause a distraction. Nothing too crazy for a scary movie that you're going to see in a mainstream theater that's gotten a wide release. Then what happens is teenage daughter, Brenda, I believe, two of the disfigured nuclear radiation, whatever, creatures, they enter the trailer, and while they're ransacking it, one of them basically holds her down. And the other one, whose name is Lizard, he has a big cleft lip, just disgusting looking guy, just teeth rotting out of his mouth. Just picture. This is what he looks like right here. Just so you know exactly what I'm talking. Freaking looks horrendous. Tells the other one to move away. He's not ready to do that because he's not a man yet, and it takes a real man to do that. And then he proceeds to basically, think about the worst thing he could do to that girl at that moment. And yeah, he does that. He sexually assaults her. And they don't. What they do is they pan to the other guy who is looking at the baby, and it's like bassinet or whatever. And then in the background, they show it. What's going to happen because it's a close up of him and her at first, and they show him like flip her around, and kind of like he does some gestures where he sniffs his hand. They set it up without showing. They set it up very, very well, and then what happens as it's kind of fuzzy in the background. You know what's going on. So that's people were not expecting that at all, and you can kind of feel the air get sucked out of the movie theater at that moment because people were just like, "What the f am I just watching?" Like, you don't go watch Scream and then see that, right? You don't. Even the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remakes that were, didn't have that. I mean, the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre didn't have that. Although the original was a lot darker than I think the remakes, but the remakes were still pretty solid in my opinion. Or the remake with Jessica Biel. But again, you don't see those SA scenes in these types of movies that I think people thought what they were watching when they went to go see the Hills Have Eyes remake. Um, as this is going on, then the older sister, one who has a baby, kind of notices something, and she heads back to the trailer as everyone's helping Big Bob, right? Because he basically was burned on, burned at the stake, burned on fire. When she gets back in there, she sees the people and the guy Lizard who had assaulted the teenage sister Brenda. He's like playing with like her baby on the floor, and then he points the gun at her, and then when she like sits down, he points the gun at the baby. Basically, don't make a move or I'm gonna kill your baby. So he then proceeds to open her shirt and basically drink milk like a baby from her. I don't think I need to do any more explaining that to for you to realize what he was doing. And it's almost more disturbing to see that scene than the assault scene that just took place like a minute earlier because it just seemed it's more you see more, it's more graphic, and you got this grotesque guy basically. Yeah, it's and that no one was ready to see that. The mom ends up coming in because she notices something as well. She gets killed, and then he basically shoots the sister who has the baby in the head, and they end up abducting the baby. So they've basically come in, they've sexually assaulted the teenage daughter. He is, I mean, technically sexually assaulted the daughter who has the baby, right? Just in a different way, and then ends up killing her and the mother. So in a matter of like 5 minutes, this movie gets real dark, real messed up to the point where I don't think people were expecting that. You can hear the reaction in the movie theater as people were like, "What the f did I just watch?" Right? Like you can feel the almost excitement of the movie kind of just get drained out of the movie theater because people just weren't ready to see that. Um, because you could hear people like just disgusting, gross. Like what the like it was very evident that no one expected to see that in that movie. And for the rest of the movie, like I said, people were, reacting to stuff before that. Then after that, it was like very quiet. Like people weren't reacting to the movie anymore because I think they were still processing what they just saw. Now, again, I know that there's probably worse scenes in movies. Thing is, a lot of times you probably are expecting that, and I don't think, like I said, no one expected it in this one. Although, if you would have seen the original, the scene is in the original one. Again, I my guess is most people had never seen the original and decided to go see this one and were completely caught off guard by that because the original one has a scene that almost doesn't. It's not as bad as it doesn't come off visually as grotesque as this scene. It's still bad. I'm not saying it's not bad. It's older. It's done differently. Although I will say, like in the '70s, it seemed like sexual assault, like rape and stuff in movies, was just a lot more acceptable or normal. Because if you think about it, Wes Craven's The Last House on the Left had that as well. I think it was just I don't know. It was a thing of the '70s, I guess, that they were just putting that in movies because now when you see a horror movie, you really don't see that in there unless it's a big surrounding factor to the overall story of the movie. And then he ends up so back to the movie, back to the 2006 remake of The Hills Have Eyes. Yeah, it completely changed the tone of the movie theater, the movie experience. I think for a lot of people, it was very quiet afterwards. If anything, the only sound that I remember afterwards is the dog. There's a dog. His name is Beast, and he kills one of the guys. And when he killed the guy, everyone was cheering, and that was pretty much it. Like I just think people just still having a tough time processing what they had just seen because they did not expect to go see this horror movie at your local mall cinema and then see that type of a scene in there, especially again because you had a and if I recall correctly, like I think it was pretty much age range, 17 to like 25, maybe 30 years old. So the odds of all any of them have probably watching the original Hills Have Eyes were very small, and they definitely were not ready for it. And when I saw it, I was pretty, perturbed, but I'd seen a bunch of gory movies, a bunch of violent movies, not necessarily with that stuff in there, but you know, it had it. It didn't. I don't think I didn't like the scene, but it stuck true to the original, and it got the job done of making you kind of squint, look away, because it's like, dude, I don't want to watch this. But definitely, other people were just like not ready, and the people that I was with were definitely not ready. Like they were not expecting to see that in the movie, and they were just like jaw dropped. Like, what the f did? They actually blamed me. They're like, "What did you bring us to watch?" So it was definitely definitely not expected. So curious to hear what your guys' movie experience were with like the most disturbing movies you guys have seen in movie theaters. Again, I'm not saying this is to me, this is not a disturbing movie. It has a disturbing scene. And even the scene, if you look at it compared to other stuff, the context is very bad and not something you want to watch, but there is things that are just well beyond that as far as stuff in movies. So again, I'm not saying this has to be the most disturbing thing ever. It has to, but what is the most disturbing thing you've seen in movie theaters? Right? That kind of changed the tone of everything. So I'm curious to hear that. So let me know in the comments what it was, and if it has a different effect watching it in a movie theater as opposed to watching it at home, right? Because I've seen the Hills Have Eyes remake at home, and it's definitely different when you watch it on the big screen, especially for the first time. Like you're watching on the big screen than when you're watching it at home, right? And you kind of say, "Oh, I don't need to see this again." Fast forward a few seconds, a few minutes, right, and you proceed with the movie. So, just curious to know what other people's experiences have been in movie theaters, and if anyone here watched The Hills Have Eyes at the remake at the movie theater, what was the reaction to that in your movie theater when you saw it? Because, like I said, movie theater I was in, it sucked the life out of that movie theater. People were not ready for it. So, again, let me know in the comments. Love to hear everyone's opinions and feedback on that. Once again, Nathan here with 24 Chambers of Film. Thank you for watching. Until next time.